Hello guys, in today's tutorial to make a rope swing. This rope swing will be a little bit similar to the one on Rope and Fly, which is an Android game. And without further to say, let me start giving you a little explanation of how we'll be doing this. So we got our player, and our player has a hook, and then the player throws the hook. Basically, we click in a place and the hook goes until it reaches that place. And of course the hook has to have a rope attached to it. Like I said, it has to reach that point, and it travels until it gets to that point. And of course, if the rope didn't have any kind of element in here, then this will be just a grappling hook. So the rope has to have nodes. These nodes are points where there are hinges, which are types of joints, and these hinges make it so that the rope can bend. And we can add these nodes as the rope is traveling. We could already add the nodes here, or we can add the nodes in this state when the hook has already reached the destination. And in this tutorial I'll be doing a little bit of both. And without further to say, let's get started on the Unity project. Okay, here in Unity, this is the scene that I have right now. Basically we have a camera and a player. This is our player. It just has a sprite, a circle collider, so it can collide stuff and a rigid body, so that physics can be applied to it. And we also have here this script, but it's not applied to the player yet, and we'll be going on to that later. So, like I said in the quick explanation, the first thing that we're going to do is to make a hook travel from the player to where we clicked. So first I'm going to create a prefab for that hook. Because I don't have any sprite to it, I'm going to make it a circle. But of course, if you have a sprite, you can use that sprite. And it's a bit too big, so I'm going to change it to 0.5 by 0.5. Change the color to yellow so that it can be seen better, like so. And of course, let's add components to it. It has to have a release body 2D, and it must be kinematic so that it only moves when we want it to. It will also have a circle collider, and it will also have a hinge joint 2D, which will make the rod be able to bend also on the hook. So we got the hook, and we're going to name it hook and make it a prefab, just like that. Now on the player we have to make a script that throws the hook to a specific direction. So let's add a component and call it throw hook. This will be the script that throws the hook. Okay, and in this script we're going to create here a public game object variable which will hold the hook prefab, and we'll also create here another game object variable which will hold the current hook, because in the end version of these tutorials there will be, you can instantiate and then delete the hook, and this keeps a reference for the hook that exists in that precise moment. Now what we want to do, like I said, is to click, and when we click we get the coordinates of where we clicked, and we want the hook to go to those coordinates. So first we must detect a click. So let's put here input.get mouse down, mouse button down, and it has the button 0, which is the left click of the mouse. And then in here we want to get the coordinates of where we clicked. So let me create here a temporary variable and make it equal to camera dot main dot screen to world point. And what this function does is it converts from screen coordinates, meaning where we clicked, to the world coordinates, to the place where we clicked on the world. So in this case we want to convert the input.mouse position. Okay, and then what we want to do, well, we want to instantiate the hook. So instantiate the hook, and we want to instantiate it at transform.position and with quaternion.identity. So this will instantiate the hook on the player position. And now we want to access the hook. So we might as well name this the current hook, and we have to make this equal to we have to cast this as a game object because it's an object. And now we want to change a property on the hook so that the hook travels, and for that we'll have to create a script on the hook. So I'm going to quickly create that script on the hook. Let's create a script, and this will be the rope script where I'll be taking care of all the rope related stuff. Okay, and for now all this will have is a variable public vector2 called destiny. For now this is enough. And now on the script that we are doing, we want to go onto the current hook and we want to find that script, the rope swing script. So we do get component rope script, and we want to make the destiny be equal to this destiny that we put right here. So destiny. And by the way, let me make the code a little bit bigger. Okay, now that's done. And as you can see, there are no errors. And now on the hook script, or on the rope script, we want to make the hook travel to that position. And for that to happen, we'll be using the vector2.move towards. So we want to transform, and this is a function that Unity gave to us. I'll put the reference to it on the description. So we want to transform the position to be a vector2 that moves towards the target, and the target is of course the destiny variable here on the top. So currently we are on the transform.position, and we want to go to the destiny, and we want to go at a certain speed. So I might as well put here public float speed and set it to 1 by default, and I'll put here speed, and there you go. Just like that, we made the hook travel to where we clicked. Now let me just make sure that all is working fine. So here on the stickman, grab the hook prefab into here, and on the play, if I click, as you can see, hooks are thrown into wherever we want. But right now there's no rope nor nothing of that, and now we're going to take care of that. So like I said, we're going to use these nodes that will be instantiated as the hook travels to the specific position. So we're going to create here a new prefab for the nodes. So drag this circle into here, name it node. We can change the color to red. This of course then we can make this invisible so that you only see the rope, but for now we'll be using this. And just like in the hook, you have to have the bridge body 2D, but in this one won't be kinematic, it will be just like this. We'll also be adding a circle collider to this so that it can collide with walls if you want. You can not add it. If you want, you can also not add this. You can also not add this if you want. And a hinge joint so that it can connect with other nodes. And this is the node prefab. You will drag it in the prefabs and delete it from the scene. Now on the hook, we go into the rope script that we already did some stuff in, and we're going to start making the nodes appear as the hook travels. So check if the hook is traveling or not. We do if transform.position of the hook is different from the destiny, meaning it's still traveling, then we will instantiate nodes at a certain distance. And we will only instantiate nodes when there's a certain interval of space. Let me explain this to you. So you got here the hook, and I only want, as the hook travels into a place, I only want to instantiate a node in between if it's at a specified distance. Imagine that I want to be a node at every 3 units, so it will be one like here, so there will be a node every 3 units. If I wanted the distance to be 1, there will be a node every 1 unit, and that's what we're going to check. We're going to check the distance. If that distance corresponds to the distance variable that we created, we instantiate a node. So here public float distance, and we can set it to be 2 in the beginning. Also, I'm going to create a reference to the node prefab, so public game object node prefab. There will be also have to connect the player to the end of the rope in the end, so public game object player. And we will also have to keep reference of the last node that we instantiated, so public game object last node. Okay, on the start we're going to set the reference for the player, so we want the player to be the equal to the player game object, and this is the game object of the player. And the easiest way to get a reference to it is just change the tag to player, and now in here just make the player be equal to the game objects dot find game object with tag player, and that's done. It has to be uppercase just like the tag. And also we want the last node in the beginning to be this game object, so transform.gameObject, because we want the nodes that we create to be connected to the hook itself. So that's that. Now on to checking the distance. We want to check if a distance between two vectors, and to do that we do vector2.distance, and that distance will be the distance between the player dot transform dot position and the last node that we created. If this distance is bigger than the distance that we stated on the top, then we want to create a node. And remember, the last node gives reference of the last thing that we instantiated, so that distance, as the hook travels onto a position, more and more particles, more and more nodes are instantiated correctly. And let's create here a function to do that create node stuff. So void create node, and here we call that function create node function. And what do we want to do on the create nodes? Well, first what we want to do is to get the direction from the last node instantiated to the player. So we want to get a vector that points from here to here. Then we want to normalize that vector so you get a very small vector that points on that very same direction. And then we want to multiply by the distance, so that we want the distance that we specified. So imagine that we multiply by 2, we will get here. If we multiply by 3, the vector will point from here to here. And then we just want to instantiate at the last node plus that vector. So let's do all of that in here, and we can do all that by doing vector2, and I'm going to name this position to create, and this will be the position where we want to create the node. So first we want a vector that points to the player, so the player minus the last node, and this will do exactly what I was saying. Then we want to normalize, so we get a very small vector that points in the same direction. Then we want to multiply it by the distance so that it gets the distance that we want, and then we want to sum it to the last node, because right now imagine this is a vector that has 5 0, and we don't want to instantiate this at a 5 0 coordinates. We want to sum these coordinates to the coordinates of the previous node. So we do position to create plus equals last node dot transform dot position. Okay, and with this these coordinates will be roughly around here, this area. Now let's see if this is all going good. Okay, it's not, because this has to be a vector2, so we do this as a vector2, and here we have to do this a vector2 as well, like so. And now let's keep on going. So now we want to instantiate the node. So we want to instantiate the node prefab at the position that we just calculated and with the quaternion.identity. And because we want to perform actions on this node, we have to keep a reference to it. So let's make here a temporary variable called GameObject, called Geo, and we have to force this to be a GameObject. And now we can perform actions on this node. And there's actually a few actions that we want to set to the node. The first one is to connect the last hinge to this node. So what we do is that we get the last node. So imagine that we have like only the hook, and what that is doing, it gets the hook and it connects and it puts in this parameter this this new node that we just created, and that's what we're doing. So we want to find the hinge joint component 2D, and we want to put on the connected body parameter the rigid body 2D of the node that we just created. So geo.getComponent rigid body 2D, and in the end all we have to do is to make the last node now be the node that we just created, so that this operation can be done over and over again. So let's see if this is creating a rope. Hopefully it is. Let me just delete these prefabs. Oh, and we got an error. We forgot to give a reference to the node in here. So drag this into the node prefab reference. There you go. And now, as you can see, a rope is being instantiated, but as you can see, there's two problems. The first one is that the player is not being connected to the rope. The player is traveling down and down. So we'll be fixing that first, and then we'll be fixing the fact that, okay, these two seem to be at the correct distance, which we stated here that it was 2 units, and this is roughly 2 units. If you see here, this is at -2 and this is at -4, so 4 minus 2 is 2, so it's at 2 distance. It's correct, but this is not correct. So let's fix those two things. First, let's connect the player to the rope, and the way to do this is if the hook has gotten into the correct position. This is happening while the hook travels. Now I want to make a function, make an else if when the hook is not traveling, and we also only want to do this one time. So I'm going to put here a variable called done, make it equal false, so that this only happens once. Else if done equals false, then you want to make it true, and so that it will only connect the player to the rope one time. And we'll basically do exactly what we did in here with this function, with this part over here. So I can actually just copy this, and we want to connect the last node that we instantiated to the player. So this will connect to the player's rigid body 2D, and that solves the thing of the player not being connected to the rope. As you can see, now the player is connected to the rope, but there's this issue where the rope only here it's correct, but in here this is not at, there's not a node at every 2 units. And the way that I found to fix that is whenever you instantiate a node, so in the create node, is that you set the node's parent, so the transform dot set parent, and you want to set the parent either to the hook, which is transform dot position, or you could also put here to the last node. So I just did like so, and it's got some invalid arguments, and that's because this is only the transform, my bad. And now hopefully all is working correctly. So let's hit play, and as you can see, this instantiates a rope. And this is it for today, guys. Of course this is not done, not at all, because we still have to, of course, create a rope between every single one of these nodes, or actual rope. And we also want to delete the rope instead of keeping on adding new ropes. So this was it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.